Language is the defining characteristic of our species. It isn't just about communication, it's about how we categorize reality and pass knowledge across generations. Today, we will journey from the first grunts of our ancestors to the complex digital syntax of the 21st century, exploring the biological, cultural, and technological milestones that allowed humanity to find its collective voice. Why can humans speak while chimpanzees cannot? Scientists point to the FOXP2 gene. Around 100,000 to 200,000 years ago, a genetic mutation likely refined our fine motor control of the mouth and larynx. This biological hardware upgrade was the essential precursor to speech, allowing for the complex vocalizations required to move beyond simple alarm calls into structured, symbolic language. Many linguists believe language started with the hands, not the throat. Before we had the vocal apparatus for speech, our ancestors likely used complex gestures to coordinate hunts or share locations. Even today, we instinctively use hand gestures when we struggle to find words, suggesting that our neural pathways for communication are still deeply rooted in physical, manual movement. How did the first words form? The Bow Wow theory suggests early language was mimetic. Humans likely imitated natural sounds, the roar of a bear or the whistling of wind, to identify objects in their environment. While simplistic, this mimicry provided a shared audio code that allowed groups to label the world around them, forming the very first building blocks of a vocabulary. Roughly 70,000 years ago, the cognitive revolution changed everything. Human thought became recursive, meaning we could combine limited sounds into infinite meanings. This allowed us to discuss things that weren't physically present, like the past, the future, or myths. This ability to gossip and share abstract ideas is what allowed sapiens to form larger, more cohesive social tribes than any other species. As tribes migrated, their speech patterns diverged, creating proto-languages. Most modern European and Indian languages share a single ancestor, Proto-Indo-European. By studying cognates, words that sound similar across different languages, like mother in English and mère in French, linguists can trace these ancient migrations and see how a single group's dialect eventually fractured into hundreds of unique tongues. Writing wasn't invented for poetry, it was invented for accounting. In ancient Mesopotamia, Sumerians needed to track grain and livestock. They moved from using clay tokens to pressing symbols into wet clay. This cuneiform was the first time human speech was frozen in time. Writing allowed information to survive the death of the speaker, effectively beginning the era of recorded history. While Sumerians used wedges, the Egyptians developed a sophisticated system of logograms and alphabetic elements. Hieroglyphs were more than just pictures. They represented sounds and concepts simultaneously. This development showed a leap in abstract thinking, using visual art to represent the complexities of the spoken word, reserved primarily for the divine, the royal, and the monumental. The real revolution in writing came from the Phoenicians. Instead of thousands of characters representing ideas, they created a system where a few dozen symbols represented individual sounds. Because the Phoenicians were maritime traders, they spread this alphabet across the Mediterranean. This simplified system made literacy accessible to common people, not just elite scribes, forever changing the power dynamics of information. The Greeks added vowels to the Phoenician alphabet, making it even more precise. The Romans then adapted this into the Latin alphabet, which is the script I am using on these slides today. The expansion of the Roman Empire acted as a massive linguistic engine, cementing Latin as the lingua franca of science, law, and religion across the Western world for centuries. After Rome fell, isolated communities began to warp Latin into their own local flavors. These vulgar dialects eventually became the Romance languages: Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. Simultaneously, Germanic tribes moved into Britain, mixing their tongues with Latin and Celtic to create the early guttural version of Old English, a language that would be unrecognizable to us today. Before the printing press, language was fluid and spelling was a suggestion. Gutenberg's invention standardized language. When books became mass-produced, a standard version of German or English had to be chosen for the printers. This killed off many local dialects but created the national identities we recognize today as people across a country finally began reading the exact same words. Language has often been spread by the sword. During the Age of Discovery, European languages were forced upon colonies in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. This created pidgins, simplified mixtures of languages, which eventually evolved into creoles. This era explains why English is now a global bridge language spoken by billions as either a first or second tongue. Sudden technological shifts require new words. The Industrial Revolution forced language to expand rapidly to describe machinery, steam power, and electricity. Terms like locomotive, telegraph, and battery entered the lexicon. This period proved that language is a living organism. It must adapt or die. If a language cannot name the new world being built, it becomes a relic. For the first time in history, people could hear the same voice thousands of miles apart. Radio and cinema leveled accents. In the U.S., the mid-Atlantic accent became the standard. This mass media started the process of linguistic homogenization, where local regional accents began to fade in favor of the standard version heard on the nightly news or the silver screen. The digital age brought a return to pictographic communication via emojis, echoing ancient hieroglyphs. The internet also accelerated language change to breakneck speeds. Slang that used to take decades to travel now goes global in hours via social media. We are seeing a shortening of language, prioritizing speed and efficiency over formal grammar in our daily digital interactions. We no longer just speak to each other, we speak to machines. Programming languages like Python or Java are highly structured versions of human logic. While they lack the nuance of poetry, they are the most consequential languages of our time. They dictate how the modern world functions, creating a new class of digital literacy that is as vital today as Latin was in the Middle Ages. As globalism rises, diversity falls. Every 2 weeks, a language dies as its last speaker passes away. When a language dies, we lose a unique way of seeing the world and centuries of oral history. Today, efforts are being made to use digital archives and AI to record and revive these sleeping languages before they disappear into silence forever. We are entering the era of universal translators. AI, like large language models, can now translate instantly and even mimic human tone. Will this lead to a world where we no longer need to learn second languages? Or will it make our unique cultural nuances even more precious? The boundary between human thought and machine output is becoming increasingly blurred. From the first hand gesture in the savannah to the first word spoken on the moon, language is the thread that binds humanity. It is constantly evolving, shedding old skins and growing new ones. As we look to the future, perhaps to Mars, our language will change again to fit our new environment. In the silence of the cosmos, we will find new ways to give voice to the wonders we have yet to discover. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.